Hey guys, Nick here from 6A The Fan, and today is our first time ever we are talking to clients and guests of ours. We have Mr. Tom Malero and Mr. Ken Galloway here from Associated Credit Union, and we're going to talk about the financial industry and a couple of things that are topical right now, especially topical right now. So before we do that, why don't we do a quick introduction? Tom, why don't you introduce yourself and a little bit about the credit union, and then Ken, you talk a little bit about what you do also.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tom Malero, and I'm the Vice President of Marketing for Associated Credit Union. We are one of the largest credit unions in the state of Georgia. We have over 160,000 members, and our credit union is a little different is that we have an open field of membership, meaning that anyone can join our credit union. You don't have to be part of a DMA. You don't have to be part of a religious organization or a company. We're about $2 billion in assets. We just reached about 4 months ago. $2 billion in assets, which is great for us and our members. Again, credit unions are nonprofit, so all the profits that we do make go back to our members as in lower rates and lower loan rates and higher deposit rates. And I've been with the company for about going on 10 years now, revamping the marketing team. Brought Ken on about 3 years ago, and we're jumping full force into digital. And that's where I'll let Mr. Galloway take over.
Wonderful.
Yeah, my name is Ken Galloway. I work with Tom as his digital marketing strategist. So I oversee all of our marketing efforts when it comes to the digital stream through programmatic, social, search, and then this new kind of digital out of home that we're talking about with radio and then even connected TV. I've been with the credit union for about 3 years and love it. Credit union industry is very different than anything else I've ever seen.
If anyone's wondering why a radio station, why 6A The Fan is having a conversation strictly about digital, it just shows how far we've come. As our audience profile has changed, people were not in their cars as much during the pandemic. So as I've talked about before, we've really did some inward searching and realized how important streaming is, even OTT that we have now. But the coolest part of that is actually the data sets that come along with it. And again, it's something we've talked about in the past, but I think it's more relevant now. Guys, yesterday actually, Google announced that they were going to push the demise of cookies back a year or so, till 2023. Most people didn't realize it until they saw stocks like the Trade Desk pop 20%, and they made their money back on the Trade Desk. So I know that's one of our guys who was like, oh my God, what happened? But that being said, awesome. Privacy is being more and more important. I have to imagine in the banking sector, in the financial sector, privacy is doubly as important. So what are you guys doing to handle consumer privacy and kind of how Facebook and Google go about their digital marketing? What are you doing about first-party data? And what is the short-term and the long-term plan to handle that?
So privacy is key in everything we do. We do not transfer PII information to anybody. And in the world of using it for digital, what we use is member profiles. And when I say profiles, it's based on specific attributes that we put together for our members. Of those that apply, those that are declined, those that are approved, and so forth. And then we use those with our agencies to go out and try to match or find what we call lookalikes, or even prospecting on that side. Other people that might apply and be approved for a loan on our side through our digital media.
Got it.
Got
it. It's not as independent an individual person. You're grouping people together and looking for lookalikes and trying
looking
to
at the clusters, looking at the cohorts and really deciding what attributes to lay upon, and then go out and say, hey, can we find people that, again, I use air quotes, look like these individuals? They still have to apply. And we don't know who they are, right? Mm-hmm. So what we do right now is we blacklist our current members because digital right now is all about acquisition. So we were moving along with a great integrated plan in 2020, and then COVID hit, and of course, like everybody else, we had to react. Budgets got cut, and all we were left with in a matter of 2 months was digital. So we had to really take a step back, look what we were doing, and say, okay, how do we make this more effective? We too, Ken and I talked a lot about, everyone's working from home, so maybe radio's not where we need to be. And fortunately or unfortunately, that is the traditional budget that got cut because it was at the time of that decision. So then we started looking at, as Ken mentioned, connected TV. We started looking at podcasts. We started looking at local radio stations that were doing podcasts. And I think that was great from a brand awareness. Really, as you know, right now, we're really trying to get into the reporting on how does that awareness convert to loan. And that's the way that we're judged on.
Of course.
So we look at the start of the application, but ultimately we're judged on of everyone who starts an application. How do they end up booking a loan, which means do they become a member and so forth.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great thing. And one of the things that we really find when we fought with digital for a long time, and really, like you said, a lot of the radio budgets, they disappeared because they were converting to digital. For those that don't know, about 10, 12 years ago, Atlanta was a $400 million radio market that would be lucky to do $200 million this year. Now, luckily, because of the tweaks we've made and how we go about things differently, we were exempt from that loss. In fact, we can let everybody know right now, June, not only will we be up from 2019, but it will be our 5th highest billing month of all time. So while most radio stations are fledgling, and I think a lot of it has to do with pivots and a lot of it has to do with relationship with clients that allow us to try new things out and we can kind of work through it together. But you talk about data and kind of, I hate to say it, but sometimes digital kind of represents the low-hanging fruit. You're getting people who are already likely to convert. Luckily, you guys have built a brand over a long time, right? The radio and mass media traditionally were known as the brand builders. And then digital is kind of the conversion. So you build a brand. It's easier for you guys to do digital now because you spent years building the brand that people know you. If you were a credit union that just started, you wouldn't be able to convert anywhere near as much as digital because you have no reputation as the brand you've built. So Ken, talk a little bit about building that brand, what you've done to it and what the future is, especially if the trend continues and you're spending more time with digital. You mentioned OTT kind of streaming services and things like that. Talk a little bit about that branding part of it and what your plans are there.
Yeah, definitely. I think for credit unions, we kind of have 3 aspects we really have to think about. One is the education aspect. People ask all the time, what is a credit union? Can I join? Is it my grandmother's bank still? Or I don't have access to my money. We're not your grandmother's bank. We have more technology at Associated Credit Union than most of the big banks here in Atlanta. But also on the flip side of that, with our checking accounts, you've also got 32,000 nationwide ATMs that you have access to.
Sure.
There's only one other bank in the nation that can beat that. And then you're also looking at the aspect of hours. Well, traditional banking is 9 to 5. Well, we've looked at that, and especially during COVID when all of our branches shut down, that's a huge loss of your branding essentially. Your branches are not there anymore. You have to make an appointment to go in or they're closed because someone has COVID. Well, we've offered these ITMs now, which have a live teller that is virtually with them from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. That's an additional 15 hours of banking that we have access to with our membership. And so when you think
convenience too.
Yeah. I mean, any time of the day, they can go up from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., tap the screen, and they see one of our tellers. And also the point with the credit union is you have this hometown feel.
Sure.
And so when you go up to it, you tap the screen, most of the time, you're probably talking to one of the same tellers that you've met with before.
Sure.
So they probably even know your name before you put your driver's license there.
That's great, man. And that actually probably helps with privacy also. When people feel more secure, when they feel more in touched and out and reach with somebody, they handle privacy differently. Like you're more likely to give, the key, the garage code to your house to somebody that you know than somebody who you just met twice, right?
Yeah.
So it kind of makes sense. So that's great. What else you guys got going on? Again, especially from the brand point of view.
Yeah, especially when it comes to marketing. We have to be really hyper local and targeting.
Sure.
So we're looking at different offerings. 680 The Fan came out with Podcast Park this year, which is all about sports. Sports are in 2021 because we didn't have live sports last year.
Sure.
So we're looking at how we can reach those members and potential members through a different revenue or different streams and kind of figure out how we can attract them. So, with y'all, we're taking finance and making it more relatable to sports.
Sure.
I got some heat earlier this year.
I remember.
When I talked about the Falcons loss to 28-3. So if you're out there, I'm sorry about that, but it was a good mix.
I remember. It actually was early in the campaign too, at least we knew people were hearing the message. That was a good thing. That's a good point. And I think as you talk about cohorts, especially, sports is a cohort of people, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's the wrong perception of sports fans in certain sports. Soccer hooligans is something that comes to mind, but you have that vision of what those sports fans are. And I think we talked about early, if you look at Google Analytics and interest reports, sports are ranked pretty high.
Yes.
And for most businesses, sports rank pretty high. Say what you will, the Braves are going to still put 40,000 people in the game in every weekend game. The Hawks will be selling tickets for $4,000 a pop for floor seats for their coming up game at home. So that sports, you're right, that pent-up demand probably had a lot to do with it. But if you look at the TV rights deals, sports are still growing. And these valuations for these teams are still growing. And it's one of the last captive audiences, right? Like you watch sports live. There's no on-demand. Ironically, and I'll just bring this up quick, one of the things that I find funny about audio and radio is that it used to think it was actually a passive audience, but now I think it's actually the most captive audience. And the reason is when you're driving in your car, you can't be on your phone anymore. You're not looking around. You are watching the road and you are listening to audio. So it is actually one of the more engaged audiences. Think about this. When you guys watch TV, you have something else going on always. You're always looking at a phone. Half the times I'm playing a game on my tablet while I'm watching TV. Am I really watching the commercials? I'm personally not. But when I'm in my car, mostly because, again, the cops are watching out for me to be on my phone and doing other things, I'm actually driving and listening directly to whatever I'm listening to. So I think that's a lot to do with the audio resurgence. Podcasts were a big part of that for us, but also just streaming and pre-roll on our stream and things like that. So yeah, I think really realistically, the nature has changed. I think, ironically, you guys are in an industry much like ours that is old and probably very bureaucratic. There's a lot of regulation and there's a lot of things you can and can't do. And most people don't know this, but the radio industry is governed by the FCC, and I have more bureaucracy than you can imagine. Just to start a little radio station, I had to do 200 pages of paperwork to buy an FM that had almost zero radius because of the FCC. And my personal opinion is it's been a 100-year industry, which means more bureaucracy, more people have to be paid, so more BS paperwork has to come about. Again, very quickly, regulation. How much does that play into your marketing message? How much does that play into what you guys do? Again, privacy is important, but regulation, is that in your way, like I believe it is?
Well, I mean, we can talk about this impending cookie apocalypse that's coming up in 2023 that's been pushed again. But let's talk about something that happened last year with Facebook and the HEC guidelines, and then also the Google HEC guidelines that went into play this year.
Tell the HEC guidelines real fast. Give the quick explanation of what that is.
Basically, the HEC guidelines govern how advertisers are able to market to our audiences through social media and then Google now. Last year, a lot of it hit the financial industry because we had banks and these small, loan sharks essentially going after people and doing predatory lending. Well, with that, they didn't just affect those people that were doing that. They went after everybody. So that affected us.
Sure.
Before we had about a CPA which is a cost per application of about $3.23.
Yep.
When HEC went in on Facebook last year, we went to about a $300 CPA.
So we cut it.
That wasn't just a general.
I don't know how you can justify that kind of increase.
You can't
it's impossible.
And it wasn't a slow increase. It was like $3, $100, $200, $300 within like a week or two.
I mean, so I have to imagine that there was a lot of money that just stopped being put into that at the same time. I mean, that had to be a jarring experience to some extent for.
But about a year and a half ago, Ken and I started devising an ROI analysis.
Sure.
It took us it took us a good year to do that because no one had ever done that within the company or done what in ACU what we're doing now, which is great. And a shout out to all our bosses and the executive team for allowing us the autonomy for doing that, because we really do a lot that people don't know about because we're at the infancy of trying to report back what we're doing in a way that people can see it from a visual standpoint and data. But once that hit, we cut it, we reallocated money to podcasts, to connected TV. We saw when we went connected TV back in March of last year when Hulu went live, we saw a spike in brand. And when we say that is we looked at the website traffic. Right? So
attribution, you're trying to see if anything causes a spike in web traffic. And nowadays, Google Analytics, I mean, you're seeing bounce rate, you're seeing how long they're staying on. You could set up different activities for them to do. So it is beyond just web traffic now.
The sources in Google Analytics is probably the most amazing thing to me as the head of marketing is what source is driving consumers and or members to our website and are they converting? We're trying to figure out right now, we've got this major not issue, but direct. And the big name of direct from a source is someone just typing in acuonline.org. Well, almost 58% of our traffic is direct. It's fantastic, but I want to know why that is so much better or doing so much better than other sources that we have out there, because, I have my own theories about that, but it's something that we have to finish. And we've been in a couple of classes, and our teachers who teach Google Analytics said that our direct should not be that high.
Ken, finish your story, because I'm curious to see again how that changed it and what really I think the CP. So your cost per acquisition went up. That's another quick thing. Cost per acquisition is tricky. Also, we deal with that in our industry all the time. A cool acquisition. Are you tracking how much money our client that we brought you spends over the next? Cost per acquisition is big in the gambling space, and we've had fights with people because they're like, "Well, acquisitions are down." I go, "Okay, what did the 200 people that came on last month? What did they spend this month?" right? Is it the lifetime of somebody or is it just an acquisition? And I understand the model, why you have to go marketing is for acquisition, but if the value of my people that I'm bringing in is 10 times stronger than another source, shouldn't that be worth 10 acquisitions?
So we look at that. We look at
and you said ROI, that's why I'm asking.
We have some incredible individuals in our business intelligence team, and it's made up of 3 guys, and they just crunch numbers. And shout out to Michael Albano, who is our partner in crime. But so we look at everything that's coming in. We call it by phone, which means our branches. We just described it as phone and online. And so we're able now to really look at what's coming in on phone and what's coming in through online from the standpoint of our CPA is, did they start the application? Did they view it and start it? Because to me, and what Ken and I have talked about, is we're the virtual branch.
Sure.
So once they start the application, I've gotten them through the door. That our backdoor systems then take over from there, right? And if they're approved or not approved, we got them through the door.
Sure.
That's what we're.
Sure.
But the reality is, in credit unions, our loan to deposit rate, our loans have to be higher than our deposits.
Of course.
Whereas in traditional banks, your deposits have to be higher than loans. So we have to look at it from standpoint, and this is what my boss, Mark Waller, has told me, you've got to take it down to booked. I agree with that, and I totally get that from a business standpoint, but from an optimization standpoint, and really when you're looking at AI, like how the system's learning how to optimize it, it has to look at application start. So when we do anything and everything, we have a great agency that's out of Dallas that we work with. It's the only agency we have because we do everything else in-house. They're really learning us, and I know that's not proper grammar, but they really have to learn us and our industry in order to be able to set up the AIs and the optimizations correctly so they can just run on their own.
Sure.
Which I know we're derailing, but the cookie apocalypse, even though it is delayed, it is coming. It's something that we need to talk about.
It is coming, and it's coming fast. I'll say, just to support that, we have that conversation all the time when I'm as a radio station, like, I'll get them there. You know what you do with them, I can't control.
You can't.
You got to close those deals. If I got the guy coming on the car lot to test drive the car, right, I can't close the guy for you. Yeah. Now, are there certain mechanisms we can pull to do a better job helping you close? Yes. If their favorite radio personality is speaking on your behalf, they're more likely to close. But I can get them in the door, and that is the job of marketing. Usually, is to get them in the door. It's other systems have to kick in. You know, how hard is the application? You know, is there a line in that application that stops people in their tracks that they don't want to fill out? Those are really important things that you have to know about. So again, I don't think 20 years ago we had any idea what those systems were, but now we know those things, and you can build marketing to help those things. Again, a lot of it's building trust and rapport. If you're trusted, you're more likely to fill those things out. We covered a lot. Let's finish real quick on the cookie apocalypse and is what you think is going to happen. So Ken, you're the digital guy. I want to hear from both of you, but we're fast forwarded a year. So we bought ourselves a year, which is great. We'll continue on with data.
I think we need to back up real quick on that, and I'm going to talk over Ken for a second. I think, so once Google goes live with the cookie apocalypse, 82%, they're saying 82 to 85% of the cookies will no longer exist. Mm-hmm. What that means from a marketing standpoint is that we won't have post-click and we won't have post-impression tracking, which is awful.
It's huge.
It's awful and huge.
Loss.
So we got to figure out what to do about that. And that's where first-party data comes in. So we are right now working with our SVP of lending, his name is Chad Evans, and our SVP of member services, member relations, named Hiwi Tedessa, about how we can apply more attributes to our member data.
Sure.
And these attributes are given to us by Equifax, because once a quarter we update, through Equifax, we update member data to make sure that we're offering the right products to the right member. So it's really, but taking it beyond that is what the demographic characteristics of that, because that's what we need in digital marketing when we go out there. When we really start testing and say, instead of doing a post-click analysis, we're doing a profile analysis of, did this profile that we put out there start an application and how many of them booked? So that's the way we're starting to test now. And yes, they delayed it a year, but I think that we're already a year behind. We should be already ahead and try to figure out what to do with that first-party data.
Yeah, it makes a ton of sense, and I think I never thought of it from the standpoint of that data. Equifax and the financial institution, how much data they have on you, and how that's exchanged, and how Equifax makes most of their money. But if that's untouched, then that makes a ton of sense that you lean on that data, which has been taken over so much time on an audience profile. Yep. I also have to imagine, once you start with first party data, just like most things, it's going to be a slow rollout, right? The larger your sample size get, the smaller for margin your error gets, the more accurate your depictions are, and you get better and better at it. And I think AI probably has got to play a big part. I mean, we're not there yet as a company, right? The fact that we're even saying first party data is insane. We're not quite at AI, but I have to imagine at some point the systems will be better at generating matches than they are now as first party data rolls out.
I think if you looked at what they call the structured and unstructured data, we're trying to get to more structured data, because right now people are more unstructured because it's like this. You don't know what you're doing until you do something.
Sure, of course.
It's all about testing. Yeah. And I tell Ken all the time, and our creative folks, it's what are we A/B testing? And this is a huge A/B test, because you'll have, right now we have a year to do post-click analysis campaign versus just profile campaigns, and really see how do we, because we know this one's going to go down and this one's going to go up, so we're going to have to take some levers and pull and do some stuff that we probably have never done before.
But you want to take advantage of what's available to you now also.
Absolutely.
So how do you balance that out? So that's, guys, we've gone over. We'll probably cut this to 2, which is awesome. But Ken, last question, okay? So on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being we are ready for the cookie apocalypse as a financial institution, 1 being I don't know what cookie or apocalypse mean. What would you say you guys would rank yourselves so far, and where you think you'll be in a year?
If you had asked me this question probably about 3-4 months ago, when we really started hammering down hey, this is coming, I probably would have said a 2 or 3. I think we're probably now getting to where we're at about a 5 or a 6. And I think working with our agency partner and all the new stuff that's going to be coming out over the next year and a half now, and especially because it's extended, they have more time to refine these things, we'd probably be at a 7 to 8 next year.
Wonderful. That is good stuff. That is good stuff, guys. Well, thank you very much for coming. Again, Tom Malero and Ken Galloway, Associated Credit Union. It was fun. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks.